The last truly great Indiana Jones movie came out 35 years ago. Since then, pop culture's most famous archaeologists' last two big screen outings have been flops. In fact, Indy's best work since The Last Crusade has come in video game form. 1992's LucasArts point-and-click adventure classic The Fate of Atlantis, The Collective's excellent third-person action-adventure The Emperor's Tomb on PS2 and original Xbox in 2003, and more recently, the LEGO Indiana Jones games in 2008 and 2009. So no matter how you look at it, it's been a long time since Indy has showed out. And it's fair to wonder if the current generation of gamers even cares about Dr. Henry Jones and his relic-chasing, Nazi-punching escapades. I'm here to tell you that after playing a few hours of MachineGames' Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, generations of gamers both new and old should care. Because as good as the studio's recent Wolfenstein reboots were, the Great Circle might be even better.
All next plane to Rome. Stop. Need help. Stop. Meet me in Vatican. Stop. Indy.
What playing Indiana Jones and the Great Circle showed me, among other things, is that it's more of an adventure-action game rather than the typical action-adventure game. And it's absolutely not a first-person shooter. Yes, Indy has a revolver here, you can also grab rifles and German Luger pistols, but I used it exactly once the entire time I played. And when I did, the gun wasn't the only thing that got loud. It alerted everyone at the Giza dig site near the Great Pyramids, and Indiana Jones is no match for two armed bad guys, let alone several. In short, firearms are clearly a last resort in the Great Circle. But I'm getting ahead of myself. My hands-on session started at the beginning of the campaign at Marshall College, where Dr. Jones is, of course, a professor of archaeology.
Archaeology is the search for fact, not truth.
Indy's working late with his friend and colleague Dr. Marcus Brody. A noise stirs him and Henry investigates, with you controlling our hero as he walks down the college hall towards the source of the noise, finding broken glass and a display scattered along the way. Thus we come to the Great Circle's first puzzle, putting the fallen relics back on their proper shelves using clues in the displays.
The best statue goes in the Egyptian section.
Once that's done, Indy encounters an extremely tall man wearing a talisman who takes something from the college's museum display, beats up our good doctor, and escapes, leaving the pendant around his neck behind after it tore off during his getaway. When a presumably concussed Dr. Jones awakens the next morning, he and Marcus suss out a lead based on the stolen relic.
He took the cat mummy, Marcus. But why?
And Indy quickly packs for the Vatican, bringing only his bullwhip, the pendant, a vinyl record for a friend in Italy, and of course, Indy's infamous fedora. The gameplay during the Vatican mission reminded me of a classic game I didn't expect the Great Circle to tap into, but I certainly didn't mind. Thief. I suppose the nighttime setting and classic Italian architecture contributed to that vibe, but it was more so the fact that stealth is the dominant approach here. Along with the fact that there are a whole lot of doors to find keys to unlock, valuables to backtrack to later, and hidden items and information all over the place.
Now what do the black shirts want with the Vatican?
While Indy's fists are his primary weapon in the Great Circle,
Sure you did your best, champ.
I quickly learned that it's best to get something in his hands whenever possible, as sneaking up from behind with a sufficiently potent object can yield a one-hit stealth takedown. I say object, by the way, since most of what I picked up weren't proper weapons, but instead things like brooms, violins, guitars, shovels, a pipe wrench, a frying pan, etc. Even more fun was using the push button to send bad guys crashing spine first to the ground below from great heights when encountering them up on ledges, of which there are many at the Vatican, apparently.
All right, pal, you asked for it.
Indy can punch, strong punch, block, shove, and use his whip to stun enemies or knock the gun out of their hand. It's a simple system that works quite effectively in practice. And to once again reference Thief, you can pick up the bodies and hide them in dark corners to prevent other patrolling padres from discovering them. Note that you can't get too far though, as carrying heavy adult humans around over one shoulder tires Indy out, quickly spending his stamina. Fortunately, the Great Circle packs an upgrade system that lets you spend the adventure points you get from thoroughly exploring each environment and discovering secrets, and later, taking pictures of notable sights. You'll discover books that contain said upgrades, but you'll need sufficient adventure points to actually apply the new skill. Punch Out, for example, replenishes your stamina when an enemy is knocked out. I also used Lucky Hat a few times, which gives you a second chance when killed, in which you're on the ground, the screen goes black and white, and your fedora is somewhere nearby. If you can crawl to it in time, you'll get back up and be able to continue on.
Aren't there more of you?
In all, the upgrades fall into 5 categories: survival, fitness, packing, brawling, and combat, thus giving you incentive to not only fully explore each area, but to tailor Indy to your specific playstyle. The third and final section I got to play fast-forwarded me to Giza, Egypt, a bit later in the campaign. Here, Indy had already connected with Gina, an Italian reporter looking for her missing sister. Giza is wide open, like an old Splinter Cell Chaos Theory mission. You can visit dig sites, a bazaar, and the Great Sphinx. And mercifully, street signs you find serve as fast travel points. You can highlight any area listed on the sign and you'll zip over there instantly, sparing you a lot of walking. In choosing one area to explore, I successfully snuck my way around to the opposite side of a Nazi dig site that I needed to literally get to the bottom of, where the elevator was.
No one gets down to the tomb.
Only to find that its 2 sources of power were disconnected.
Why is this thing not working?
This led to 2 more stealth sequences into separate caves to get them turned back on, one of which let me sadistically fry some Nazis who were standing in a pool of shallow water with a wire I just brought to life. And another even had me swimming underwater, before finally getting to ride the reactivated elevator all the way down to the underground tomb. A stone glyph logic puzzle down there challenged me to place 3 round stone plates into their correct spots on a mural, triggering a beam of sunlight that shone across the room onto a wall. I picked up a nearby sledgehammer, bashed the wall a few times, and a hidden room was revealed.
And there's something behind that.
Inside was the relic the Nazis were after, but Indy had beaten them to it instead.
Nazi idiots.
Unfortunately, I soon ran out of time before my demo session ended. It turns out I'd spent more time than I should have in my limited preview window exploring other paths, taking on side quests, and taking photos of Giza.
It is something in it.
In other words, I spent a bit too much time adventuring. No regrets. As I said, it's clear now that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is more of an adventure-action game than an action-adventure one, but after a few hours playing it, I love it for that. The first word you'd likely associate with Indiana Jones is probably adventure, not action, and the Great Circle hones in on that. I'm absolutely smitten with the look, tone, pacing, and voice acting here.
I said, who is Father Ventura?
Shout out to Troy Baker for effectively pulling off a 40-something indie. What MachineGames has got going here is a very unique blend of gameplay. In fact, I talked in my first hands-off preview about how much Indiana Jones and the Great Circle reminded me of 2004's seminal first-person stealth adventure game, The Chronicles of Riddick: Escape from Butcher Bay, which not only proved that licensed games could be incredible, the opposite was usually the case back then, but it showed that a first-person game didn't have to be a shooter to be riveting. Butcher Bay was built by the same core group of developers that later founded MachineGames, many of whom are still with the studio, and that Riddick influence is just as evident when playing The Great Circle as it is watching it. I don't know if executive producer Todd Howard, who famously pitched this idea to Lucasfilm many years ago, had MachineGames in mind when he came up with it, but the pairing absolutely works, and I absolutely can't wait to experience the rest of Indy's latest adventure. For more on Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, don't miss the 5-minute cinematic trailer as well as the release date trailer. And for everything else in the world of video games, stick with IGN.